Starting soon.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another Album Book Club album review. Today we are taking a look at The Pressure Point by Ollie Wride. This album came out today and was suggested by one of our viewers. You guys ready to start this?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. My phone is playing audio. Hold on. Alright, we're going to kick it off with our top three. My top three songs were Call Me Up, A Matter of Time, and Holy Drug.
I have Radio, Contact, and Call Me Up.
I have Holy Drug, Simpatico, and The Way I See It.
I have Matter of Time, The Way I See It, and Call Me Up.
A lot of overlap.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go with our bottom songs. I had Contact.
I have Holy Drug.
I have Typecast.
I also have Holy Drug.
Valid as pick.
For real.
I think I know why, and I think it's the same reason that I liked it.
I'll be honest, I can't even tell you what. Don't remember off the top of my noggin.
Just keep messing up. All right. Let's get into the first track. We have Matter of Time. I gave this one a 7.5 out of 10.
A 6.5 out of 10.
I gave it a 7.
I also gave it a 7.
Who wants it?
I don't know. I was just thinking. I think we're learning our scores because we've been hitting windows more lately. It's kind of funny. I don't know. The first thing that hits you on this album is the synths, and they're really immersive. I really was impressed with the synths on this track. You definitely get the vibe they were going for right off. You get the synthwave, you get the 80s, all the retro, all the stuff people are looking for. For me, I think this would have rated higher if I could stand the drum sound at all. It just wasn't there for me. I'll probably talk about it every track, but
Well, I can't blame you there. I didn't think it was a bad start either. I liked some of the more like funk elements that were included in the background tracks. I thought that was really cool. But the vocals in this one and throughout the rest of the album do sound kind of flat, and not like tone-wise, but kind of expressiveness-wise. They sound just a little flat, and I think the horn stuff is fun, but it doesn't really get fully fleshed out, and I wish we got like some more of that in here.
I disagree. I wanted to give someone else a chance to say it. Sorry, I think the vocals are like the point of this whole album. The vocals are incredible the entire time.
I think I'm going to agree with that, but my big thing is there were a couple, not just the horns, but there's a couple of different spots throughout this album where I was like, I wish there was more of this. There's like one of the songs later has like 3 or 4 different guitars shown off, like different guitar tones throughout the song, and I'm like, I wish at least one of these got a solo.
I think a lot of the cool stuff that happened too is just buried in reverb. I think it just got covered and doused, and yeah, I get that's part of the sound, but also when the vocals are up so high, it's really hard to hear that stuff, and I had trouble. I knew there were cool parts there because I turned it up a few times. That's one thing about this album. You really should listen to it loud. It's meant to be loud. But
I can confirm that, because when I was listening to this album at like half volume, I was like, this doesn't really sound like anything. And then I cranked it, and I filled out the headphones, and it was really nice.
Yeah, there are nice soundscapes, but I feel like you miss a lot of the details.
Yeah.
Just because of how much of that's going on.
Yeah. There is a lot of presence to this song, which, to your point, you kind of need it loud to hear everything. And I think it's just there's so many effects going on; they just layer in, and it gets you. It's a little bit of a negative to me. It just kind of threw me for a loop. I was like, so much was going on. There was the power-up selection from Mario Kart. You know, when you like pick it up, the like little warbly sound. That was definitely in this song at some point. And to comment on the saxophone, it was good. It just felt like it was mixed in a little wrong. Like they tried to add a little grit to it.
It's got pedals going on it or something. It's very, very affected.
Something. But it just wasn't my favorite. Not my least favorite. It's a pretty solid song. But it definitely did get better from here, I think.
Yeah, I think going back to the vocals a little bit, I think this did a pretty good job of kind of merging modern mixing with like the 80s style, because there's like just a little bit of 80s grain on it, but just enough that I felt it, but not enough where I was like, yeah, that's what they were doing.
So there was a lot of bigger producers with credits doing this album. There were a bunch of ones for different songs, which I thought was really weird. But the album on a whole leans to overproduced for me, especially at points. I think there's just points where there's so much going on, and again, that's part of the genre. But like, I would have preferred there be, well, real drums, but more musicianship shown. It's not that it's not there, but again, that's coming from someone that plays the drums, so I don't know how fair that really is.
I want to talk to whatever producer did Holy Drug. We'll get into it when we get there. But
Yeah.
I think it's the reason I want to talk to him. I think is the reason that half the group didn't like it. All right, we ready?
All right. Yeah.
All right. Next up is The Way I See It. The Way I See It is a 6.5.
I give this a 7.5.
I gave this one an 8.
I give this one a 7.5.
I can go if you want. At the beginning, there's some interesting double tracking on the vocals that was a little distracting. But the song is catchy. And I really like whatever distortion they have on the sax, or I think it's the sax and guitar playing at the same time later. It does this interesting texture meld that I don't know that I've ever heard before. I don't know that I've ever heard that particular thing done to make an instrument have the attack of a saxophone and the sustain of a guitar. It was one of the more interesting things I've ever heard, with how it was layered, how it was mixed, how they were playing the parts. I just thought that was a really cool thing. Texturally, it almost sounded like a synth pad, but I knew it wasn't. And again, the vocals on this track are awesome. Dude can sing. I actually took a break here and watched some live videos, because at this point, he sings so well that I was actually like, oh, he's faking it. They're just really good at auto-tune. This was just really produced. No. Dude can sing. So I'm super impressed there.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on the whole, like the horns. I thought they did great in this song. There was so much like energy. It was so fun, and I think that's what made it so catchy for me too. For me, it dragged just a little bit towards the end, and that's really all I had negatively to say about the song. I thought it was super fun.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaways from this track were vocals and then the saxophone synth hybrid part towards the end. I really liked that, and I had it written down that the rest of it, like the chorus and everything, was fine, but like not a bad fine, or like a subtly I didn't like it fine, like an actual fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think this was a track that realized that set a common theme, which is I like the way all of the music sounds. I just get overwhelmed very easily by it. I think there's just so many effects going on. That's why I kind of stay out of this area. Of
Logan's like a
music.
stray cat. When you open the door, he just like fucking skitters away.
Yeah, pretty much. You gotta like ease me in a little. But it's not bad. None of it's bad. It's just a lot to handle for my little brain.
for the amount of effects that are on the snare drum, still sounded like a cardboard box on this track. So at this point, I was like, maybe I just don't like synthwave snare drums. Like, I was on such a tangent at this point. I listened to like 10 different 80s songs. I listened to a bunch of different stuff. I took like a 15-minute detour here just to make sure I wasn't like losing my mind on how much I did not like the snare drum sound these last 2 tracks. So I listened to a ton of reference tunes, a ton of different stuff, and it's just dead. There's just nothing there. And like the only thing I can like explain is it's like hitting like a wet piece of cardboard or something. like there's no fullness, there's no tone, and yeah, I hear snare wires at the end, but like whatever sample they're using, because it can't be a real drum, I just don't like it. And then they use it the rest of the album. So I hope I'll not rant about it again.
He'll bring it up again.
Dang, I had something to say. Now I lost it. It's gone.
Yeah, talk about it next track.
Yeah, I will. I'll come back to it.
Well, no, I said I'm going to talk about the snare drum next track.
Oh.
Now that I just did that, I'm sure I will.
We ready for that next track?
Yep.
All right. Next up is Victoria. I gave this song a 7 out of 10.
I give this a 6 out of 10.
I also gave this one a 6.
I also gave this one a 6.
Hey, I'll get this out of the way. It's pretty early.
It is pretty early, but Logan, I agree with you there. I like the drive that the song brings. I like some of the energy here, but it starts to wander into the realm of I feel like I've heard all of this before. And cool, it's like this, like the way the piece holds itself together, standalone. Yeah, this would be really fucking cool. But now that I've heard the previous 2 songs on the album, they're starting to hurt the other songs around them.
That is the exact thing I wrote,
Yeah.
basically.
It's not bad by any means. It's just missing like a really big defining factor.
The wow factor.
Yeah, like people
And
call it the X factor and all that shit.
That's because the mix is so dense you can't tell them apart.
Yeah.
You can't tell the tracks apart with the band. Now, his vocals are different.
This is like a layer cake mix, man.
The vocals are different, all that's different, but all of the tracks just sound the same besides the vocals. And it's not, I don't think the parts are the same. From what I can tell, that this one has a groove to it, but it's not the same as the groove from the last track. It's just, he's so locked into whatever genre of this, he couldn't experiment any. And as much as I appreciate being true to something, it gives fatigue when you're listening, like actually listening to the whole album. This would be killer to throw on the background.
This would be a
I-
great
This is-
vibe album.
This would be a great like house party album,
Yeah, that too.
And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. Like I mean like that would be awesome. Side note, I always do hate songs with girls' names in them because I know they're never written with that name involved, and you have to figure out how it rhymes and all that stuff. I just hate that.
I think they ran into a word not rhyming later. For that word. Or needing a word to rhyme later, yeah. You can't tell me simpatico was the first word that came to someone's mind for a fucking song.
I watched this fairly early this morning, and I watched all the YouTube uploads, and the top comment was a dictionary definition of what simpatico was.
What is it?
Compatible. It basically just means you're compatible, but it's
Oh.
more commonly used to describe your relationship with, or to like describe somebody. It's hard to say. Describing your relationship with it is a secondary use of the word, not the
Oh.
primary use.
Interesting. Okay.
All right.
Because I had to look it up. Sorry.
No, no,
I had to
Connor-
look it up and confirm that word was properly used.
Okay. Connor, did you talk about this song?
No, I didn't have much at all. It's a really catchy song. I didn't dislike it, but like you guys said, great for background, not as great for what we're doing specifically here.
Yeah.
I actually feel like a lot of these songs would score higher or better if they were not surrounded by themselves. Like,
Yeah.
and I just think that's a thing overall with the album. I think this is something that hits in a playlist, that kind of thing.
That's exactly what I have at the very end of this. That's like my main point.
So
Oh,
mixed
sorry.
into like a driving playlist for sure.
Hell yeah.
Like most if not all of this album. But we've said it before, certain albums suffer from what we do here.
Definitely. Yeah, this was definitely one of them.
I think it's almost impossible. You have to be like hitting on all cylinders to make an album that's meant for this format.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Because I mean, you go back as far as you can. It was regular to know, write like 6 good ones and 4 shitters.
So I actually had a thought about you earlier while I was listening to this, Logan, because I thought this would be the perfect bridging song for all of your terrible music tastes. So you could like put an 80s song in the front and then you could put something that's like 80s pop, and then you could go to this, and then you can hit like the Killers or something from like 2005, and then that'll get you over to the Gorillaz, and then you can get into your modern stuff if you ever
Bro, I
need to
think
make a playlist that
you're gonna
flows.
form a mob if you hate on the Killers. I think.
Oh no, I don't hate the Killers. I said this would get you to it. No, I actually like the Killers. I mean, the good stuff. Nobody likes the later stuff.
That's fair.
All right, you ready to move on?
Yeah.
Does anybody have the feature written down? Should I go get it? Okay,
I got it.
It's the American English.
Cool. The song is Radio, featuring the American English. I don't think I've ever once written down the feature on my notes. But I gave this song a 6.5 out of 10.
Gave this an 8.5 out of 10.
I gave this one a 6.
I also gave this one a 6.
Damn.
Logan, defend yourself.
I will. This one was, I think, pretty obviously Queen inspired. And I like Queen a lot. Damn it. I think I also did accidentally take an AirPod out for about 20 minutes, and my song was paused before I realized that there was nothing going on but white noise through them, through the one left in my ear. So I did take a break between the last track and this one. So I clicked back in. It was high energy. It was fun.
What do you mean?
So when you put 2 AirPods in, right? Because I wear my beanie at work, I put one up here, so it registers it as being somewhere, but not in an ear.
You know, they do that.
And this one, I leave in, and then it just plays the white noise from the silencing, and no music. And it didn't register because I was actually doing things.
Ooh, boy, you are special.
You never just get like locked in and forget that you have a headphone in because you're more worried about the work you're doing?
A lot of times I wear it over the ears instead of actual headphones
Oh,
because they hurt my ears.
it's fair. Earbuds for life.
I don't know. I just think you should get some normal Bluetooth headphones. I don't like the whole tech thing. I don't want to touch my headphone and it do things. It weirds me out.
I almost never touch them. I just think they're convenient because they're an Apple product, and I work on all Apple products.
To be fair, I've talked about this before. Like in a recording studio situation, what I was trained in, like wireless is pretty much seen as the devil.
Yeah,
So-
wireless is the devil for like AV.
So like 100%, I just would rather have a dongle. Like I use a cheap dongle plugged into my iPhone, plugged into these huge, thick, wherever it is, this huge thing, all the time. And I'm literally like, this is the stupidest looking thing, but that's how I prefer to do it. I don't know why. No, that was a weird rant.
Yeah, fair. Back to the fun Queen song. I thought the synth chords worked real good in the chorus, and I thought the vocal performance was the best so far. But really, I think what gave this track such a high score was getting that second away from everything else. I think there's so much energy to each of these tracks that if you go into it one after the other, man, it's like trying to be like at 100% all night. It ain't gonna work.
But speaking about length, they're not short tracks. They're not long tracks, but they don't feel long, which I think is some of it too. Because I think they're longer than you think they are, and that adds to some of the fatigue. But I totally heard what you're talking about. I hear a lot of 80s influences throughout this whole album. There's some Peter Gabriel, some Queen, and so when I was on YouTube watching his channel a little bit earlier, because I don't know, sometimes I get sidetracked when I do these, he did a lot of like 80s vocal covers. That's actually what I watched because I know those songs, so I didn't want to spoil any of the rest of the album by listening to them live. But there was a lot of them, and dude can sing, and anybody that can pull off Queen, kudos to you. That's a big deal. Rest of the song, catchy, great vibe. I don't know. It lost points for me for the moaning section. I'm never and like I think he might have been saying ooh, but the way it was mixed, it didn't come out that way. And like anytime there's just guttural noises coming from behind in the mix, I just would prefer it not be there. And then Saxy time was too smooth this time. We've talked about this. Kenny G is the end of my soul. I just cannot stand it. So whenever saxophone gets too smooth, I start getting offended.
Yeah, I didn't like the saxophone too much in this one either. I liked it in some of the other songs. I like the more like textured saxophone that we get. For me, it's his. I feel like this is the point where it's the key. I feel like he's always singing in the same key, and I don't know why it feels that way. Is he singing in the same key the entire time?
I'm fairly sure the whole album is either in the same key or very, very close.
I thought so.
No, there's a key change towards the end.
There is a
one.
key change
I'd
in
say
one of
we're
them.
either working in like G or G, C, and A. Like it's either very close.
And
or
they're all parallel keys, so they all flow together really well on the album. But a part of that is that's a good thing for pacing, but a bad thing for listening fatigue.
Yeah, and that's where his vocals in particular didn't they overshadowed the feature for me, because I thought the feature was good. It was great to get that little reprieve, but when it's all the same and he's a great singer, and I don't understand why there isn't more variance. So it's confusing to me, really.
No, we're getting way ahead of ourselves. There is a variant of it towards the end, but he only does it half of the chorus, and it made me so mad that he was doing some cool stuff, but he only did it like sometimes. It was bothering me. I haven't. It's a note. It's way late. It's like one of the last two.
I will also defend him. How many times have we all been caught going, they doing too much? Well, this is the one time we're complaining about the guy doing exactly what we ask for, like every other time.
I've literally never said that. Always more, never less. Faster,
Really?
never slower. Always more, never less. Bro, my favorite genre is jazz fusion. I like it to just sound like a wall of notes.
Wall of sound.
Everything we
different.
say it just reinforces what I think is going to happen when we get to Holy Drug.
Yeah, and it really it starts making more and more sense who we are as people and how we pick songs.
It was the idea or the thought I had in the very beginning just keeps getting reinforced with everything we say. I'm like, I'm 100% right.
I had a thought like during this. I was thinking about it. I was like, man, I wonder what he would sound like with a real band. And I like that sounds really mean because these guys are there playing, they're doing all this stuff, but like I swear he has a voice that he could play whatever stadium rock he wants, whatever. And I get that he's super drawn to this synth pop stuff. It confuses me. Sorry, synth pop. I said that really weird. It confuses me what led him to. Yeah, it's really bad sometimes. My brain really delays. I just want to know who his influences are that led him to this, besides just saying like the 80s. I want to know what kind of pushed him down this path or that kind of thing, because it's such an interesting, I won't say rabbit hole, but such an interesting road to go down.
It's so weird because I think as a musician you tend to almost hold yourself back just to what you want to play, and when you achieve it you give up sometimes. He's like, I think even just as a guitar player, finding out what I want to do next and what I want to learn next is the hardest thing. It's not what I want to learn now, it's what I want to learn next. It's actually the hardest, because just figuring out where to go, it's scary. And I think that can also like halt you big time, especially if you find success in your one genre. I mean, we were talking to Never Summer. They were even saying they want to like branch out from their genre. It's something that's hard to do and like come to terms with as a band. So I would love to see this guy do more, because he can definitely do it. But also, I think what he's doing with this is hitting real hard.
I don't know. I think even if they just let more real music come behind it, even if it was like synthwave fueled, even if it was more synthwave fueled like power rock or something, I think I would be happier. I just think this genre is not for me because the drums are samples. I think that's fundamentally what it is.
That's fair. That's with the sample drums. That is what pushes me more and more to the one guy doing it, hired live band.
No, I really don't think so. Because, dude, their music videos are there's so much chemistry and stuff between them. Like, again, I cheat because I watch the music videos, but I also watch some of the other stuff with him doing it solo. Like, he's good, but the band is definitely adding the writing in and stuff. They're definitely helping him lay down these tracks and helping him do that stuff.
That for sure, but also up until Remember That You Will Die with Polyphia, they were the same way of it was really Tim and Scotty. Everyone wrote. Two guys went and played bass and drums live with them. So it's like
it could be only 3 of them or 2 of them, but at least one of the band members is definitely there. There might be one of them that's helping write a lot of it, and they may not have a regular drummer. I don't know. I didn't do that much digging. I don't know. I want real drums if you're going to record other real instruments, or don't hide them from me. Don't pretend they're drums and give me a drum machine. Pick somewhere in the middle. Like, I don't know. That's just, it always offends me.
Drummers.
Drummers,
No.
man, can't ever please them.
And then I guess it's the whole thing back to like the feeling that robots are taking my jobs away. With like, you know, like that's
Not the
fundamentally
AI taking over.
No, I mean, no,
The
seriously.
one
like,
millennial is the one who's scared of robots.
No, this happened in like the 80s, man. To drummers is
yeah,
like,
Y2K.
Yeah,
No.
Terminator.
no, like, dude, drum machines just started taking over and taking all the jobs. And somewhere I have a bumper sticker that says "Drum machines have no soul." You know,
Terry has that on his drum kit.
does he? Yeah, you know, I all of that stuff. I'm like, man, but I understand not wanting to pay someone to play and all this and all that. But the thing that like confuses me here, you know, we did Nerve the other week. We did a human making synthetic sounds on purpose.
Hey,
but,
Carl, real quick.
oh yeah,
You should read that comment.
yeah. Well, that's awesome. No, I don't know. I just like we a couple weeks ago did the Nerve thing where it's a guy doing electronic style drums and it's more interesting. I don't know. I'm good at ranting about this specific thing.
Last little bit
I mean-
off topic. I listened to that whole Nerve album. It scratches every part of my brain.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to sit up. My mic decided to start dipping down with me.
We're back.
All right.
See, there's
So he did write
there's a like 20 to 30 second buffer between when they hear us.
Mhm.
There's a 20 to 30 second buffer where we have to read it and comprehend the comments.
Nice. So it is all live playing.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
Hell yeah.
No, that's really cool because that really helps some of the background and all of that stuff because I that's really what it feels like. It does feel like a live band and the energy all feels like it's there. It does.
That
It
it
just
does.
Mm-hmm.
it might get a little buried in the mix. That might be it.
All right. We ready to
Do track
move on?
5? Yeah.
Is this only track 5?
Yeah.
Oh my god. We've been yapping.
Yeah, I've been ranting about. I ranted about the same thing for 4 tracks, and I'm going to try not to anymore. I'm
Look, we
sorry.
got a talking from our producer last week about hitting times.
I didn't talk to anybody about hitting times. But next up, we have "Call Me Up." I gave this song an 8 out of 10.
I also gave this one an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I give this one a 6. Sorry.
Damn, I gave this one a 7.5 out of 10.
Oh, I know why Carl gave it a 6. It had the vocoder. He doesn't like the robots.
Oh, no.
Well, no, actually, there's a very different reason. I got vibes from Lion King 2 from this one. And, like,
What?
for whatever reason, whenever I hear that, it just triggers me. And I don't know what it is about the Lion King 2 soundtrack that I hate so much.
Sucks.
There's a Lion King 2.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's-
there is a
it's,
Lion King too.
It's like Simba and Nala's kid. No?
Yes.
It's like their daughter and then a kid that looks vaguely like Scar but isn't Scar's kid or something weird.
Something
It's
like
terrible.
So that was it. That's the whole reason. That's it. I literally wrote, I love the jam, and then I wrote, dude can definitely sing. You know, I think I wrote that every track. Is I either write vocals.
So I actually teased this. This is the one I was talking about earlier. So first off, vocals awesome. The vocoder, I really like the sound of it on here. This was the one that had, I have it written first as there's an electric guitar. I hope that gets a solo. And then later I was like, wait, there's like 4 or 5 electric guitars on here, and I wish one of them got a solo. I really like this song. That was my one thing. It would have probably been a 9 if one of them had like a cool solo at the end.
I was about to say, that probably would have bumped it up a whole point for me,
Mhm.
too.
Because they all have like 1 or 2 set like bar accent parts in a row, and it's cool, but I wish one of them, probably the first one, got like a whole section.
We've all really hinted at it. I think this is another one of the victims of just us because we all really like genres that is like one to the right or one to the left of this
Yeah.
specific genre, and I feel like we're nitpicking it like we're in one of those. Like it you know, I'm trying to think of. I don't have a lot of context to this specific genre to say, oh well, there should be a guitar solo here, or oh, there's too much reverb, and I think I might be a little mean just because I don't have that context, and I'm expecting it to be more like the 80s rock I'm used to hearing with a bunch of killer session musicians on it that are all legends at this point, you know, or I'm comparing it to the electronic music I listen to, which is all played by ridiculously good jazz musicians. So, you know, I don't feel like that's necessarily a fair comparison.
I would agree if this wasn't the only place that I say something like that.
I guess
like,
so, yeah.
give us one. This is not like Night Ranger a couple weeks ago where it was every single song. I just think there were like 4 or 5 different guitar tones shown off in this song, and I wish at least one of them got like a whole section. What they did with the multiple guitar tones was cool. I liked that, and I don't think all of them should have got a solo. That would have been insane.
Yeah, I think if you limited it just like one, it would be like a cherry on top
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, like a show the first one off, do the cluster of the 3 or 4 of them, and then give that first one a little solo, not a like
yeah,
minute
like
long
30,
solo.
like
Yeah,
30 seconds.
yeah,
You know, just a little.
just a little something.
Yeah, I really like this one too. We already mentioned it, the Robo. I love the Robo voice going on in the
Mhm.
background. It's such a cool little neat effect. I liked how this one sounded pretty different at the beginning. It didn't have that energy behind it. We started kind of slow, and that was a nice little break from all the high energy tracks we've gotten.
Yeah, it's my turn now. Look, we've been talking about all the good. I'm going to talk about the one downside I had to this track. Now, mind you, I did give it an 8. And that's, frankly, I love my skip button a little too much. And when songs get a little too repetitive, I love to ride that skip button. And I unfortunately couldn't do that. And I would have shaved off about like 25 seconds of this song and called it a day. But that's really my only complaints. Like, cut off 25 seconds. Good to go.
We gave it the same score, and we have the opposite problems. You want to give me 25 seconds, I want to add
crazy.
25 seconds.
It's
really
just like
funny.
I think I just had a little too much repetition, and my brain was like, "That's it. We're turning on the song now."
No, that's 2 songs from now.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
we didn't mention it. Thanks to Ollie for checking us out and checking in the comments before I forget to say anything.
Huge thank you.
To Chad's point he made,
Missed one.
second British invasion, I think he's talking about like The Cure, stuff like that. I think that's what I'm thinking of, and Ollie is from England for sure, so I think that could be some of that vibe. I don't know, for some reason English
Oh,
music
hell yeah.
tends to sound like other English music. I don't feel like that's a weird thing to say, but it definitely reminds me of specifically people from England. I think that
Mhm.
that was one of the things I very clearly heard in the influences. You know, you brought up Queen, a lot of different stuff from the UK. Sorry, I'm struggling to come up with words. I thought I had a point.
From the England. All right, we ready to talk about?
Are we ready to move on?
I think we're ready to move on.
We're on Wish You Well, right?
I believe so.
All right.
Jeez, it's track 6 only.
I was gonna say, I keep asking Logan. I know he doesn't write down song titles.
I do
I
actually.
keep, oh, do
It
you?
was my New Year's resolution this year to write down the track titles and numbers for every podcast this year.
All right. Wish You Well. I gave it a 6.5 out of 10.
I give this one a 7.
I know why. I gave this one a 6.
I also give this one a 6.
I can get this out of the way.
Can
Hey,
I-
guess what?
Can I guess why Logan liked it? Because it had a Daft Punk section in the back with a vocoder.
I think that was the last song.
No, that was this song.
No, I just enjoyed a lot of it. My big complaint was that during the melody, it keeps rising and rising and rising and rising, and there's not like ever a beat for it to like stop and then start again on the same note. So it's just like, ooh, which is really cool. Except for at one point, it feels like it gets. I know it doesn't, but it feels like it gets out of time because the way with how much music we've all listened to over the years, the way our brains are wired is there's a stop beat here, and then when it doesn't come, our brain is now behind a beat, and it threw me for a loop.
Yeah, I didn't really have a ton of notes for this track, unfortunately.
That's
Dude.
exactly why me and Connor
Yep.
did what we
Dude,
did.
So no, if you like the vibe of this album by this point, you know what you're in for. This is
Yeah, you're
pretty
locked
much
in.
the halfway point, and it's still there. The vibe is still there. The push is still going. It still has the feeling of the rest of the album, and I think that's one of its strongest point. Is this is one, we talked about it in Somewhere City, right? That's the name of that album. It really took us to that place, and this album definitely does that. This one definitely gives me that. Depending on who you are, you envision either Tron or Miami Vice, but you think of neon colors and that whole, I guess, glamored up 80s thing we all think of. This does a really good job of taking you there, the album as a whole.
Most of the tracks almost got a note about this could be in like an 80s movie. That was a lot. I think I wrote it like 3 or 4 times throughout.
100% this feels like this could be like an 80s musical almost. And that's just because the vocals are so forward in all of it. It reminds me of some of that stuff a lot more later. Start showing off.
I agree and disagree with you. I think that, yes, this would go to an 80s movie as made in 2024. I think this would go great in a movie that takes place in the 80s as made now. And
it would have to be. The album came out today.
I know that, but I'm saying if you were to put this over any movie from the 80s, I don't think it works one bit. I think it's very 80s inspired. It's not very 80s sound.
It feels nostalgic. It
exactly.
doesn't feel like
it feels like it's trying to
Let me
invoke
rephrase
nostalgia.
that. I feel like this could have been in an 80s movie had it come out in the 80s.
See, I don't know. This,
I don't know. I think it's too.
If this came out in the 80s, it'd have real drums, right?
No, it'd definitely have a better drum machine.
Either or. I don't know, man. This album has a really weird thing because I felt like I was torn the entire time. I had nostalgia, but like I couldn't figure out if I was having nostalgia for like 1988 or like 2005. Like I couldn't figure out if I was thinking of. I literally couldn't figure out if I was thinking about like being in the 80s or thinking about being in the 80s in 2005. Like I don't know which one of the two. And I think you hit it. I think the production is more modern.
Well, yeah.
I think that
and
is
I think
really
that's the
what
thing
it
that
comes
tends to
down to is if this was recorded on tape, yeah, obviously it would have been the industry standard back in the day. But because of how clean cut it is this is really good take on the 80s, but it's a modern take. And
depending on when, this could have been early digital. In the late 80s, I think this sounds more like early digital. But that's kind of how we talk about music history. Is that there's a lot of songs that are timeless that you can only tell where they belong because of the production. With the exception of the Beatles, because they invented production as we know it. They kind of just sound like everything, and it's not really fair. But everything else you can typically tell where it belongs based on whether everything's over-polished or under-polished, or in the case of the 80s stuff, what the synths sound like or what the drums sound like, what the digital instruments they were using sounded like. And big point to this, I don't think any of the sounds they're using sound dated. I think the fact that you made an 80s sounding album that I don't think sounds so retro that it had to come from the 80s, that's a big compliment. That means you're not using any of the cheesy sounds.
Yeah, that's why I feel like it invokes that nostalgia.
This is a timeless album based on the 80s. This is in reality an album that 20 years from now, we're going to go, yep, that album that kind of sounds like the 80s. And we're going to say that till, we die in 2,000 years with modern medicine and all that bullshit.
I 100% think we will be hearing more of Ollie. Like I think this is like the part where he's gonna start taking off.
This is for
there
sure
ain't
the
no
bottom.
fucking way.
This is for sure. This is the bottom of the ramp.
Yeah,
like,
this is
up.
ridiculous. Cause I know he sold out a tour before COVID and then kind of took a break, I guess, and then now this is the first thing that's really come out, and people have been begging for this and waiting for this for a while. So it's definitely the start of something. He's got a big tour going right now.
Hell yeah.
Obviously, I guess he's not playing tonight, but
I hope he's not playing tonight, or we're on stage.
Yeah,
we're in the
These
background.
guys fucking suck.
Everyone boo these guys.
Could 100% be the case, but I don't know. I mean, I think we're being pretty nice for a genre we don't listen to, but
for something that we don't listen to, and that tends to go somewhere that irks us a little. Like this is a genre that dips its toes into a lot of the stuff we like, yes, but also dips our toes into a lot of the stuff that we're like, Like songs over 4 minutes are too much going on in it.
There are definitely certain times that it has what I call the Coldplay effect, which Coldplay is all the bad parts of U2 with all the bad parts of Radiohead. So
So
there,
all of you too.
there are literally points where I'm like, oh, this has the Coldplay effect. This is all the bad parts of a lot of things I don't like, but I get it. You know, I definitely understand. People have different influences. Can't like everything.
Yeah, that's true.
Damn straight. I wish everyone would understand that.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like we're pretty nice in general.
I think we need a kick-ass montage.
So you say pretty nice in general. My brain flashed back to the last of the video from yesterday.
My brain flashed back all the way to season 1.
I was not nice in the
That
video
is
from
yeah.
yesterday.
There was a whole character that we had to retire.
When was Metallica? Was Metallica the 80s?
Yeah.
Well, I hate the 80s. Okay, well, I take back everything I've said.
I don't know why I had to think about that. Yeah, they were very 80s.
All right, we have talked for very long.
Yeah.
We like to go.
We'll move on to City of Angels. I gave this song a 7 out of 10.
I gave this song a 5 out of 10.
I gave this one a 7.
I view this one a 6. I feel like Logan and I are about to have the same note here.
I hate Los Angeles. I'm just kidding. I actually really like the idea of LA, which I think is what this song is about. Except for they chose the most like bare bones delivery for a song about the city of angels.
For real. I feel like this one is a repetitive mess. Just a little bit. It's just really here, and you got some of the funk stuff in there that I like, but it kind of faded into the background for me. It didn't really stick out to me.
Did none of you hear the hydraulic press synth one shot?
Probably
It like
not.
started the song off with a synth that sounded like a hydraulic press, and then the key change was a hydraulic press key change. It was awesome. I was expecting people to either love it, hate it, or like I guess not hear
Just
it.
not
but
acknowledge.
Yeah, for us, we
I
were
thought it
like,
was
it's
sick.
not there.
So I was actually really hyped for the key change because, like we said, on all of the songs so far, his vocal ranges have been very similar, and that's probably just whatever key they were the most comfortable in the studio. I don't know. Maybe they're not in parallel keys, and again, we're just getting confused because of the production. But when that key change hit, I was like, oh yeah. I was all about it. Now it is super abrupt. That is the definition of a truck driver gear shift key change. It was definitely ka-chunk, and you're in the new key. But,
Drop it in a second.
But I 100% am all for it most of the time. And not this song. I mean key changes. Sorry.
Does anybody else have anything?
I don't know. Sorry.
No.
I
I didn't have a lot of notes for this song.
I do like the song. Sorry. I made it sound like I hate the song at the end.
I don't mind it.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I don't think this is a shit song. I just think if I was going to be allowed skips on this album, this just would be one of them.
Yeah, for
But
me
if this
too.
was on in a playlist, I'm fairly certain it probably wouldn't get skipped. It may very well just be a chance of it got screwed by like how many of these we've listened to at this point and how similar they are.
I kind of feel that way too, mainly because I found the chorus to be just repetitive. I didn't like it a lot, but I feel like I only felt that way because I've heard the same like kind of keyed. I'd say I've heard like kinda similar things to this for 7 songs before this, so it's kind of hard to judge, really.
This is literally the only time you're ever gonna hear this out of my mouth. This album could use an interlude. Like just a minute of something
no.
to break up the monotony.
Don't ask for that.
Oh,
We're
Lord.
gonna only get that for the rest of the season.
So I'm gonna go back to what I said earlier. I think this could go on any playlist as like a transition song, almost from anywhere to anywhere. I think that's true of most of the tracks on this album. But I think if you're building a playlist that skips decades or does different things, like I think you would go from an 80s to a 2000s or an 80s to 2024 or I don't know, maybe something even
know what?
earlier. This stuff just it exists in such this retro mind space. I think it could fix a lot of people's playlists.
In the least mean way I can mean this album is great for filler songs. like the songs in between your main hits on your playlist, you know, the transitionary songs. That's what I mean by filler. I don't mean like, oh, this is just whatever. No. I feel like it could really serve a purpose for if you're trying to make something work together.
This is the cheese on the cheeseburger.
Right?
I don't.
This is
I
the
don't-
mayonnaise.
No, I don't think that's the case. I don't know, man. I definitely enjoyed it more than what I've been getting recently, which is I'll get on YouTube and I'll be like, oh, a cool new album I haven't heard before, and then I'll get like 3 seconds in and I'm like, this is freaking AI generated. Like they literally created a band out of nowhere with no history that no one can look up, and then like half the comments are, hey, this is fake, and half the comments are like, so cool, I haven't heard of this band.
Hey, we had one of those try to get us to review their EP.
Yep.
Man, this isn't anything like that. This is awesome. A bunch of guys put a lot of time into doing this, and there were definitely some pretty serious hours put in on the production side, whether I love all of it or not.
This is somebody's baby, and it shows. We may not love all the choices, but that's the wonderful thing about art, is it's all subjective.
I feel like one of the only reasons we don't like all the choices is because they're all mashed together.
It kind of has like
Feels like somebody's favorite snacks all put together that they brought to you.
that's
Yeah.
a great that's a great
Like to try it once, they're like, this is everything I love. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool when I get them one at a time. But when I have it all at once, it's just a lot.
Yeah, dude, it's kind of like that like chocolate flavored trail mix stuff where you're like, man, this is sure interesting, and sometimes it's the right thing and sometimes it's not. And I think I think Ollie said that it's a freight train and a lot for some folks. You know, when he kind of described the seconds he was in, you know, I think that is what makes the most sense out of what we said so far, is that it's kind of like a, man, sometimes that's awesome, sometimes it's not. You know, it's definitely not for everybody, but I'm excited to give this a second listen, or listen to some more of his stuff, or just listen to him in general because he's a fantastic singer. But this feels like it's going to be a slow burn for me. This is going to be something that, as a whole,
You'll come back to this in like a year and a half and you'll understand it.
Pandora's hipster cocktail party station. I agree with that, Chad. I 100% agree with that. Glad someone else uses
mean-
pre-made Pandora stations and not just me.
My dad uses Pandora.
I use Pandora when I want to not think about what's coming on, which is almost never. I always want to think about what I have coming next.
So a neat fact, you can't cross the streams as far as rock and jazz goes, or all
Whoa.
streaming things you can do is play Chicago. So no, true fact.
Wait. What do you mean you can't
So
cross the stream? Nerve does exactly that. You did an EP review on that.
No.
exact concept.
no. I'm saying
2
like
weeks ago.
you can't listen to like Miles Davis and like newer stuff on this, like rock at all, on the same streaming service, because all of your suggestions are just going to get screwed, and the algorithms can't figure out what you do and don't want to listen to based on your moods if you have a wide range of what you like. So I use Pandora for rock because the algorithm's pretty responsive to that, and most of the time I'm not necessarily looking for new rock. That's the one thing I say Pandora is pretty weak at, is giving you new suggestions you'll actually like. It's really good at giving you things you do like, and like swinging home runs and doing easy bats and that kind of stuff. I use Spotify for jazz so that I have newer stuff coming. I get recommendations I like and do that kind of stuff because it's so different. And I've tried doing one streaming service like 6 different times so that I can get a mix and then like turn something on and then decide I'm not in the mood and just switch it, rather than, oh, I gotta exit the app and then open the other one. But it has literally never worked. I've tried it like 4 or 5 times.
Damn.
Yeah, I don't let robots pick what I listen to at all.
I don't like it either.
I let it go on auto when I'm in a certain mood for something that maybe I have less of in my playlist. Like every once in a while I'll be like, I'm in like a super white girl mood. So then I'll just pop on like a Marina album and then hit the Infinity or whatever on Apple Music. So it just plays
Yeah,
stuff like it.
I didn't know Apple Music had autoplay until like a couple months ago on one of these episodes.
Yeah, I don't mind it.
It's one of the only ways I can get suggestions for new music without like doing what I used to do and digging into artists and who other artists play with and this kind of stuff. 'Cause, like in the jazz world, that's the best way, really, to find other music you like is going, oh, this person played with this person and they played with that person, and then checking out different stuff, going basically through almost like a family tree.
Well, that's how you'll find the best 80s shit is all the like session guys that did one album.
Yeah. But that you can't do that with modern music, and you definitely can't do it with modern rock at all. So, otherwise, I would not have any music that came out since 2012, other than what you guys play for me. I'm not gonna lie. Like when I went down my little jazz rabbit hole, I kind of haven't come out. So,
You never
We
do.
know.
Right.
is that a good rant? Am I taking up a lot of time with
Yeah.
rants? That
You
don't
have
make
taken
sense?
up a lot of time.
Dude, you've yapped.
Good.
We ready to
We're
move
definitely
on?
hitting our numbers tonight. Thanks.
Oh yeah, producer will be happy. The editor won't be, but
Totally real producer. Totally fake editor.
yep. Next song is called Typecast. I gave this song a 6 out of 10.
I gave this one a 7 out of 10.
5.5.
I give this one a 6.5.
Oh, do we want high end or low end first?
I can take it easy real quick. Fushigi Blender.
For real.
It sounds a lot like a lot of other songs on this album, which is not. They're not really songs I dislike, but in the like full listen of this album, if there was ever a point where fatigue hit, it's right here.
So for me, I was hitting kind of fatigued, and this sounds like everything else. And I feel like a common theme that I'm starting to feel with these songs is like I feel like since I'm listening to so many of them together, as I listen to more, it feels more generic. Like I know if I took a break and I came back to this, I'd be back in that 7.5 to 8 range, immediately. But because I've listened to so many in a row, I'm hitting that fatigue. It's starting to wear down my scores to the point where I feel like this is just like a generic pop album. But it's clearly not. The amount of musicianship and work that went behind this is crazy.
So what I figured out for us is for an album to do really well at this point, at this length, things have to be, they almost have to be like a mixtape or a mix CD. We want some real like variation on the album. And I think whenever there's a sound and it stays that sound, we tend to get fatigued by it. And I think that's part of just our bias from listening to shuffled playlists and all that stuff for so long. I think if you look at this like an 80s album, it makes sense. Something from that era would not have had that. And I'm sure whatever reference they're basing it on, it is not that. But at the same time, like, it was definitely a lot to listen to this morning. That's the other problem. This album came out today, so we listened to it during the day while we were at work or very hurried. Here, this was one that, definitely did not have time to soak in for any of us. We pretty much had just enough time to get one listen and get it done.
I'm gonna kind of disagree with you
There was
because I do
5 out.
I do that all the time. But there was also 5 of these tracks out before today.
Yeah, but you couldn't have listened to it as a whole album. Most of our
You're not
complaints
wrong.
are that it's the way it's done as a whole album. Because I think, like, this broken up as a bunch of singles, I think I would like every song better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's my one big note at the end here when I get into album overall.
I was really excited to hear the side chained here. I really like kick side chains, and I know Connor doesn't, so I wrote that down.
So, to disagree with you on one point, which is we all listen to shuffle playlists. We're also all avid vinyl collectors, and there ain't a shuffle button on that hoe. So it's
Real.
like I think, and I mean,
There's-
we've all got decent collections. You two obviously whooped my ass, but I've got enough to say I listen to a lot of different music on not shuffle, and I enjoy listening to stuff like that. I think it's just when I'm listening to an entire album, it's less that I'm looking for a lot of variation. It's I'm looking for variation in your own sound. So if you can stay within pop and then hit different reaches, you don't necessarily have to go from 1 to 10, but if you can go from 6.1 to 6.8 instead of just staying on like 6.5, you know what I mean? Like in just a number range.
I just think it's like it's again back to almost, I won't say it's overproduced, but whatever happened at one of the final stages, whether it was mixing or mastering, they just made everything so similar that it masked all of the different stuff that's going on in different tracks, at least up to this point. You know, we just had 1, 2, 3, 5 tracks that were so similar, like it was hard to tell what was going on between them. And I don't think the tracks are bland. I think they're just so similar that it was hard
I
to,
will
to
also
make it
say
to this point.
we are kind of a fluke nowadays in music. And it sounds weird because you talk to a lot of people that are like, I listen to everything. Bullshit. You don't listen to everything. You may listen to all of like 3 or 4 genres, and that's even how we are. We may even only listen to all of 12. But
Well,
it's just so hard to listen to so many, yet we all cover a lot more than the average person. So when we do get into these situations, we have a wider basis of these talents throughout all of these different things. We know artists who are terrible at rock and artists who are so good at rock it's hard to listen to them.
I have a great response, but to your point earlier, before I forget, 3 songs in, I looked to see if the vinyl was already sold out, and it was. Would be killer to leave on, and or have cranked up on the stereo with people over. I looked for the vinyl, like the second track of this one. But back to your point about music, I fundamentally believe there's only 2 genres, and it's good and bad.
That's
And
fair.
that has so much to do with your personal taste that I can't decide that for you. You know, there's a lot of stuff that I get annoyed with because of tropes in the genre, and any genre that I believe has a trope to make it a genre automatically is worse for me. But good and bad are the 2 fundamental types of music, and whether you like it or not, I think that's the thing you should focus on.
Break the system.
I was saying,
So
I'm
punk.
not gonna get into it because we'll be here for another 2 hours. I completely disagree with that statement. And
As
I'm gonna
do
leave
I.
it at that. That is an off-camera debate we're gonna have,
Oh wow, interesting.
or not
Music
have.
things
I
to talk
don't.
about.
I'm not torn up about it. I don't actually care. I just don't think you're right.
Well,
So you don't
can
think
we-
like 3/4 of music is just pop/rock at the record store, and that's correct?
Like maybe at the record store, not in existence.
Like, yeah, well.
But to talk back about Typecast, I do agree with you all that this is a very solid pop song. And this is about the first time on the album I would really say that it's dedicated fully to pop. This is
For
the track
real.
that to me I was like, all right, if any of them were to get pushed out to people, this is the one I see it being. Do I agree with that? No. I think there's significantly better tracks on this album. But this is the one I think is most appealing to the average person. And so I understand the commitment to at least one of them on the album being for everybody, not people who are pop listeners that prefer Synthwave.
Yeah, yep. Agreed. Sorry, I'm still on this other thing, and I'm trying not to bring it back up. I'm gonna be good.
Yeah, we don't have enough time.
No, this is gonna be like a 4-hour long at this. We're going as it is anyway.
There's a decent chance I just keep the cameras on in case somebody wants to see that.
The fist fight in the album book club studio.
I don't think it'll be a fist fight. I just think we would talk about this for. We've already
Oh, a
had
long
multiple
time.
really long tangents in this episode, and I think it would get so much worse
Yeah.
if we brought
Yeah.
this debate into the.
Oh, definitely. And
ring.
Okay. Let's move on. Let's move on.
No,
let's
no,
move
no.
on.
Before I. No, just
no, we're cutting it. We're cutting it.
in
Yeah,
case
let 'em-
in case anyone watches this and we don't put the other half up, I'm not saying I don't think genres should exist, and I understand why they exist. I just think people dig into it too much. That's all. Okay.
that
That's
one
fair.
that one I can agree
That's
with.
That I
fair.
agree with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
What you said before was a little extremist, without context.
Yeah.
You
Well,
music radicalist.
I mean, yeah, I listen to jazz. You already put me there.
Oh, for real.
That is true. He did hand me a Santana album at the record store and goes, buy this. I'm like, I don't think I've heard of this one. He goes, you wouldn't.
All right, we ready to move on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next up is Contact. I gave this one a 5.75 out of 10.
Oh God.
I give this one an 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I gave this one a 7.5.
I give this one a 6.
All right,
So-
let me get this out of the way because it's really not that long of a review. Good lord. This one slowed down a little bit, and it got a little bit repetitive. And I have the rest of my note is I'm sorry for the lower review. I just looked at what was around it and realized that it would have the same score as everything else, and I didn't like this one as much as the songs around it. It's fine, but it's the same review as like the last song. It's a lot of the same, and it's slowed down.
My first note on this is, God, I'm having a hard time reviewing this. And the only reason I'm like having a bad time with this song is because I'm taking a look way too deep into what I'm listening. It's decent, but at this point I'm so fatigued that it's just kind of there.
You know, it's funny. We have very similar reviews, but mine has like a happy ending in the next song, and yours doesn't.
Right?
So I think if anyone was primarily listening to music for the vocals or the lyrics, especially, all of our complaints probably wouldn't exist. I haven't said that yet, but like vocally and lyrically, this album is awesome. It's not that there's not support from everyone else. I just wish there was a little more, or that I heard it a little more. Because I don't think it's not there. I just think it disappeared in the masking of whatever sound this is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge vocalist guy. We all know that. I love fucking vocalists. I love looking into lyrics and all that bullshit. For me, I adored this album, but it's hard to see past not having a really... You have all these really cool noises in the background. Let them shine, man. Let them come through. Don't cover it all up just because it's safe.
I think we're just learning we really don't like Synthwave. I just think we're learning...
I think I kind of like Synthwave.
I like Synthwave.
Okay.
I wouldn't consider this Synthwave though. That's my argument.
I
this
guess
is
that's
synth
fair.
pop teetering on regular pop for me.
That's I think
Pop
all
with
the
synths. Good God, I can't talk today.
Dude, I did it earlier. I trailed off and lost one, and then had to come back earlier. I think that's what it was marketed at.
I think
when I saw it earlier. That was the only
this is
reason I said that.
also more akin to 80s synthwave, which is what we call modern synth pop.
That's fair.
So this guy's references are spot on for what he's doing.
Yeah.
We just have changed the title over the years. I think this song is the encapsulation of this album, to be completely honest. I think this is the right 80s nostalgia beat. This one gets you thinking in your feels. It's got the right 80s like sound-ish with the modern go. It is just a little bit too repetitive. That is what keeps this song from being a 10 for the purpose of this album. And if I've got to rate it on its own merits, it's not a bad song. Maybe a little overproduced and a little repetitive. That's pop music. That is the name of the game. It's really nostalgia hitting. You know, it's about like ex-girlfriends and sadness and all that crap. Everybody can relate to that at some point in their life. So I think this is just a really good one. And I was spacing out in the best way, where I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, man, those were good times like 20 minutes ago.
Logan, I can't relate to this because I'm an innocent little virgin boy. How do you feel
This
about
dude
that?
really wanted to be in the Monday, Wednesday
For real. I'm giving you something.
Weird. Okay, so I guess that's gonna make the real too. I was really happy that this one gave me a little bit of a break at the beginning. I think that's what it was. Is the stuff kind of like pulled back, and I got some raw vocals for a minute, and then it it came back with the same groove, and it felt like it belonged on the album. But I got my, I guess Logan would say, need for an interlude out by having that change in the beginning, and it kind of broke up the, I won't say monotony. That's not the right word, but there's a certain amount of reverb I can take before I feel like I'm living in like an oil tank or something. And that was what was going on earlier. I was getting shaken apart by so much reverb. So I got a break from it for a second. I was like, oh, I can breathe. And then it came back, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'm fine.
I like to think of it the same way of being in water too much and your hands get like all pruny, you know?
That is how this album felt in my brain.
It's just like sometimes you just need to take a break and
Wrinkled my
step
brain
out
a
the
little
water.
too much.
Dude, some people just love reverb. I know a couple people that like, I've been in the studio with artists recording, running an amp with the spring reverb on 10, running a reverb pedal on 10 into it, and I'm like, hey, can we turn the reverb down a little bit so I can do something in the mix, and he's like, why'd you want to add reverb in the mix? It already has plenty.
Can we actually get more reverb on that? A couple more pedals. 3 precisely.
Yeah.
7.
Next week on album pedal club, the reverb pedal board.
So
Just
like
strap like 10 into each other.
in this particular case, he definitely needed the reverb to be comfortable playing. It wasn't that he couldn't play guitar; it said he needed it to be comfortable, and it was a really bad call on my part. But I would have had a lot more capability of doing that on the back end. So that could be what's going on here too. They could be playing live and playing with a ton of effects on a ton of stuff. And then when you try to glue that together in a mix, you tend to get mud. And I'm not saying this album is muddy. It's mixed really well. But sometimes when you have too much going on, it actually takes away from the overall thing. You know, you get overstimulated by the effects. You get, I'm trying to think of a food example. You know, like you get past the point with how many toppings you can get on a pizza before it just tastes like loaded pizza. You know, like I really don't think of a loaded pizza tastes different once you get past like 6 or 7 toppings, depending on, I don't know, like olives and jalapenos are so different, but like depending on what else is there, you just don't notice past a certain amount of stuff, and that happens with effects a lot.
There's too much going on. Your brain singles a couple out.
Yeah, I just get overwhelmed, and I mean I enjoy
Too many
that.
toppings on his pizza.
Once again, keep reinforcing my thoughts of the next song. I said it in the first song. Just keeps getting hammered in.
The last line in my notes on the next song is very mean.
Well, are we ready? Did everyone go?
Yeah.
We'll go to the next song.
All right, next up is Holy Drug. I gave this song an 8 out of 10.
Give this a 4 out of 10.
I gave this one a 9.
I gave it a 5. Logan also hit that shit.
I said that this song is the accounting department of the album. And by that I mean it was just the most boring. Like, I had no fun during this song. I don't know why. I couldn't get into it one bit. The chorus, to me, just it didn't hit home. The melody itself felt not unoriginal, but uninspired, if that makes sense. It feels like they found a progression, they found a key, they were like, yup. It felt like it was missing a lead part. Like, it needed something else to it.
Logan, you took the words out of my mouth. I feel like this chorus and this one is so damning when you compare it to the rest of the tracks, because it feels like every single one of them. It's like it's just the same thing again, and it's so hard to really care about it.
This is really neat. We're gonna fight. This was my absolute favorite track on this album by a pretty large margin, because it finally gave me the thing I want in an 80s song, and that's a killer build. It had this awesome soundscape that started with this killer synth at the beginning, and then it pulled back and had a build all the way through the song, and had momentum and dynamics and all the things none of the other songs did. All of the other songs were a jam, and they were like, yeah, this is pretty cool, I'm vibing. This song had like forward energy and a story, and I was like, oh, this is it. It was great. I loved the different filters on the different parts. This was the point where I enjoyed all the production stuff going on, because it helped enhance the track instead of just making it where it was too much. So I want to know if there was a completely different producer here. I didn't look that far into it, because this did not sound like the same album as the last track.
I would bet there is. Logan, what did you listen to this album on? Was it AirPods?
It was my AirPods,
All right.
and it was.
You got screwed.
You
If
should-
I
you
want to
should-
say something about this album, anyone with AirPods past Pro 2, I'm gonna say go ahead and listen on something else. like if you've got literally anything else to listen to it on, it was hard on AirPods, and it was because you had to crank it so high that it would start peaking in them.
What I was gonna say is listen to it with something over ear, either these or
As I've
something
got my
else.
Beats at home, I'll
But
plan on
there
doing
is
another listen too.
so much happening behind like the main melody of this song. I wrote down, I'm like, this is incredibly busy of a song, and I want to. We've been talking about, like, we've been saying play it safe for a lot of these songs. I think the mix playing it safe allowed all of that to kind of be hidden,
Yeah.
so that people listening like with over ears and are looking for it are gonna hear this stuff. But normal, like AirPods, you're not really gonna hear all that. But it was. This is a dense song.
You know what's interesting? I think because I listened to the album differently this week, it affected this song. I didn't do Over Ear this week. I listened on an actual speaker, and also I did that at home, and then on my way home from work, I listened in the truck. This song in the truck, I cranked my volume to 30, which is the maximum in a Ford. 'Cause I couldn't even...
Insane number.
Baller.
I could barely hear anything going on in the background. It all muddied out because I was listening, I guess, on the wrong device.
Interesting. So I listened on studio monitors, like pro level studio monitors. So that's and not headphones, like speakers.
I'll say I
And
want to
had
go
it-
back and listen on monitors.
I
That'd be
had it
sick.
all the way up because this is one of those albums that like. So I work in a music store during the day. I guess that's probably lore at this point. So like if the lyrics aren't going to offend customers, and especially if there's no one in the store, I'll turn this stuff on the day before and I'll usually leave a few tracks to get better taste of the mix, and especially this one because I really did not like the drums so much. I wanted to listen to it over another source. I still hated the snare drum on this track, but I liked everything else that was going on. I was like, oh good, they let the band out. I mean, that's essentially, and I don't mean to sound mean, there was some killer stuff earlier. We got a handful of sax solos, and there's a handful of cool guitar parts, but nothing like these next 3 tracks. And this was the point where the gear shifted, and I was like, this is what I wanted.
Yeah.
I'll agree with you on the next 2. Sounded great. This one, genuinely, I will let you guys borrow the AirPods after this. It was rough.
It
No,
was rough on like the speaker and the truck speaker too.
I think this was just a product of my device did not like it.
I agree with you because there's a lot of this mix that there's just so much more, and they kept adding more and more, and at a certain point you can't have any more. You know, we talk about that a lot on this. Like, at some point you have to have less to have more in a mix. There's only so much certain things will handle, and unless you're listening on AirPods, unless you're testing in a car stereo, you don't know that. And they may have tested in a car stereo, tested in AirPods, and been fine with it, and it's just not designed to be listened to critically in those situations. You know, I think that's probably where we tend to fail sometimes, is we listen critically on things that aren't designed to be. I'm sure if we all had a listening room at our libraries at home and used it only for that and could take the day off to listen to the albums, we'd have different scores for everything and a lot more notes. That's just part of the imperfection of what we do.
But I do think that was a lot of the original idea behind this.
Critical
Was
breakdown.
We do say it in the title, but also it's like 4 to 5 people listening in different ways and showing their experience listening to this music.
And that is one thing. The experience of this album was awesome, and I started to enjoy it at this point, and that shows in the score.
I think that's why we have a lot of notes come in, I think mostly from me and Logan, of just like, this album was great today, or this album might not work tomorrow, stuff like that. It's different environments.
I will 100% say I woke up early to listen to this album this morning before I went to work, and at like 6:30 in the morning, this is not the thing to put in AirPods and put in your ears. Because, dude, that synth came on this morning, and I was literally like, nah. And I took my AirPods out, and I rolled back over for like 2 more hours.
So, in contrast, I listened to this to start my weekend on the way home from work on a Friday. It was great. It was the perfect time to listen to something like this.
So yeah, I hit it about 10 a.m.
That's the power of music. The way that things that aren't directly connected to you can control your emotions. It's kind of interesting.
Nothing can control me.
It's like Inception. It's like the power of suggestion.
No. Holy shit.
I think I got it. We'll see.
Yeah, you did.
That was a Zoolander.
Am I supposed to have any shame in what I do on camera?
No.
Nah.
I think that filter got broke in my brain.
Don't let anybody control you, dude.
Is that Zoolander? Yeah, that's Zoolander.
Crash out.
Where they have Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Stop, Don't Do It. Yeah, that's Zoolander. Will Ferrell's
I
the
haven't
bad
seen
guy.
Zoolander
Yeah.
in like. For whatever reason, Ben Stiller is who I thought you said that. I'm like, Ben Stiller's not the villain, you asshole. He's the hero. Can we talk about Fire in an Ocean?
Yep.
No.
Can. I gave it a 7 out of 10.
Give this one a 7.5.
I give this one an 8.
Gave this one a 7.
All right, let's talk about that solo at the end.
Oh, it's kick ass.
Fucking
Really?
cool, dude.
Yes, I was so happy for there to be a guitar solo. Now, here's the thing. He doesn't play like Eddie Van Halen, so you were upset.
I wasn't even upset at the fact of he didn't play like Eddie Van Halen. I was upset that it's track 11 and this is the first guitar solo on the album. It
yeah.
made 0 sense.
Well,
I understand that not everybody's going to play the way I like to play. There are things that I want to hear you hit in your guitar playing.
dude, I was just totally just giving you crap. Like,
Yeah.
I
But
hope
I-
you don't think I was
Oh,
serious.
no. But I think, yeah, this just, it feels out of place now. Had
if
this
they had one
happened 4
earlier.
tracks earlier, yep, it'd be cool. But I think it's a little too late.
I liked it just because it was here. You know, I thought, oh my god, something different, fucking awesome.
You know, we'll talk about it when we talk about the pacing of this album. I don't know that I loved it or hate it. I still can't decide. If I like the fact that it's kind of like, I won't say meh, but very slow, very vibey for like most of it. Because you get kind of this bump and then an up, and then you get kind of this thing where you ride, and then the very end is this huge ramp. And it's kind of the opposite of what we tend to think about. What does well for us with albums? We tend to think of albums that have like a golden rule, like they start low and then they come up and then they come back down. Usually peak a little bit for the outro. You thinking about how the energy goes. We tend to think of things differently than most people, and I think if you're just passively listening to this album and the last track starts to catch your ears, it's the right time for it. And I don't know how this was designed to be listened to, or if that was even on purpose, but I thought that was actually really cool, and I think that's why these last 3 tracks on this album were by far my favorite part of the album.
I also think if I didn't have so much beef with the last song, catching, because it did grab my attention. You are exactly right, and I think that is the right thing to do. I just didn't like the last song, so you grabbed my attention to piss me off.
I think this song would have got like a 9, maybe a 9.5 from me if it didn't have that weird fire alarm sound in the middle. It had like I guess it was replacing the snare sound, and I don't know what it was, but like when it came on, I literally paused the song and like walked around the store to figure out what was making that noise, because it didn't make any sense in the track other than it being on beat. And I was like, what is that? Is something rattling? Did I turn it up too loud? Did I break something? I just really did not enjoy that particular sound.
Yeah, my biggest notes on this. I liked the song. It was good. It was a good placement for this song. He does something in like the hook of this song, on the first line and the third line, vocally. That's maybe the most different thing that happens on this entire album, and I wanted more of it. And I was upset that was all we got was 2 of 4 lines throughout this song.
Yeah, if all you do end up rewatching this again, my biggest takeaway from like the whole album would be I want to hear what you guys were doing the last song, this song, and the next song on an album, because I was super impressed with what was going on these last 3 tracks. I don't know, it was really cool because he showed off his vocals more in this one. Like there was just more of, this was the song that gave me the confidence that I was like, oh yeah, these guys are awesome musicians. They just haven't been showing off the whole track, or whole album. It probably fits the genre though.
Carson, you got anything?
Did I not already talk about this one?
He sort of did.
Did you? I didn't.
He just talked about the guitar solo.
Oh, that's what it was. I also really liked the intro. I thought the intro was cool. And this is where I put my note down, where this is where I really, for whatever reason in my mind, it was hard to get past the keying at this point, because it's been so long. You know, this is track 11, and I feel like we're still in the same key other than our one key change. So it was kind of difficult to get past that fact. But other than that, I actually like the rest of the song around it, and the musicianship is better in the song.
Yeah.
You ready to move on?
Yeah.
How do you say this one?
Simpatico.
Simpatico. I give this one a 7 out of 10.
Give us a 6.
Give us an 8.25.
Gave us a 7.5.
This had to be lower than Holy Drug. Sorry, that's how I ended up with the 8.25. Because originally it was an 8.5. I will tell you exactly why this got the high score it did. Is it reminded me of the song from Tarzan, "You'll Be in My Heart." I don't think it sounds like it. I just think like it had this very like heartfelt 80s like nostalgic vibe, which Tarzan came out in '97. It's just that it's Phil Collins, so it sounds like the '80s. But I don't know. I just vibed with this one real hard.
You know, I picked up on that in this one, and that's actually kind of why I scored it a lot higher than some of the other songs on this album. You know, you can feel some more of that emotion come through here while I was complaining about it being flat before. So this was a nice change of pace for me. I feel like it sounds different from the rest of the tracks. I like this ending. I like how they ended this piece. I think it was really cool.
I actually said I do like the ending. I just like the whole, all the instruments being in the digital realm or very digitally masked took away from, I think, what this song could have been. I think if this song had a big, like, I won't say rock and roll ending, but I mean, if you had some wash rides or something like helping build some of that energy up, and we weren't just relying on synth pads and the same thing we'd been using the whole album to do that, I feel like it would have been conveyed much more, the energy going on at the end. There was a lot of opportunity there, and I just felt let down by the fact that it's just digital samples, and we've talked about it. I don't like them the rest of the album either, so why would I like them here?
I feel like, yeah, it's a victim of the genre.
Yeah, I feel like that's the thing. Like I think if this exact band had gone in with the notion of recording a pop punk album, I would have given this straight 10s with the songs there. Or some, you know, there would have been a couple lower, but like I just think it's a victim of the genre.
That's fair. Yeah, I 100%. This is the ending to this album. It could not have gone anywhere else. I thought it was a really solid wrap up to this. It kind of it used the same sounds, but in a way that made it feel like the end to what we were listening to, and I really don't think it could have gone anywhere else.
I feel like it used the same sounds in a different way. That's why I liked it.
Different font, maybe.
Yeah, like they bolded it.
I just hate the word, dude. I think this feels like a case of every word but the main word got written in this song, and then they're like, shit. I think this is just, you know, as a thinking musician, I want everyone to be able to sing my songs with me. What's the first thing you asked at the start of this song?
Yep, that didn't.
And
help.
they say it in the song a million times.
Right,
It's just not a common word. It sounds fake. I know it's not. It's not your day-to-day English.
It also doesn't help that I can't read.
Okay,
For real.
I think you're actually wrong. Exactly 180 degrees wrong here. Because I will not forget this song because it has a weird word as the title. And since I heard him say simpatico, I can sing along to it if I wanted to. I know you would never catch me dead singing along to a song. But if I wanted to, I could, because I heard him sing it, and I would have heard him sing it. You don't want to hear me sing.
See,
Carl, I bet your voice is beautiful.
I was actually in choir and did musicals and stuff. We're not going to talk about it.
Let's get him on a
Go
track.
ahead and get him.
Carl, I do agree with you when it's not the title. When I think of songs that say words that you're not thinking of, it's like the Joker says the Pompatus or whatever the fuck.
Pompatus of Love, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about Local H's Bound for the Floor. He says, just don't get it, you keep it copacetic. And every time I hear the word copacetic, I'm reminded of that song. Because that's one of like 4 or 5 uses of it that roll around in my brain. So like, I don't know. I guess it would be more memorable if it was just in a catchy part of
Exactly.
the
If
song.
it was one line instead of a really good song with one word that just doesn't fit, but they made it fit. I just wish, because I mean, to say that like we go together, that's not a new song concept. I mean, shit. That's like the most unoriginal
half
song
of 'em.
concept. Yeah, exactly. But
we've been on the strangest rants tonight. I just want you to know that.
oh yeah, I'm so fine.
You've
with
led
that.
most of them.
I know. It's my fault.
But I think just choosing a word that's strange, while fitting for a memorable line, it's hard when that song is the line. This song is mostly the one line. So if the big memorable word is the whole song, it's not a common memorable word. It's not like this was like gingerbread house or something weird. Like this is just a weird word that's not commonly used. That mean it's synonymous to something we have a million other day-to-day words for. It just feels like they picked a word in the thesaurus and were like, That's it.
Maybe it's just not common in the language that we use, and maybe it's more common in the part of England he's from, or in some sort of like, maybe it's a nod to something that we're not getting. You know, it could be a reference somewhere. That happens a lot. Is it? You know, it's a reference towards something somewhere, whether it's in music or in a movie or something they really like. It could be a specific reference, and we're just not getting it. That happens all the time.
And that leads right into this wonderful point. We'd love to talk to you about your album. So if you'd love to talk to us, shoot us a message, or we'll shoot you one. Just let us know.
Yeah, do my best not to turn into Carl's rant show again. Apparently, that's what's going on. Is Carl is an angry man today.
All right, we want to get into pacing.
Yeah.
All right. I gave the pacing this album a 7.5.
I gave the pacing of this album a 7.5.
I gave it an 8.5.
I'm stuck between two scores, and it's a 6 and an 8.
So
They
7.
go 7. Yeah.
I was like, you
Well,
got it pretty clean in the middle.
No,
there.
I have two different reasonings for each score.
I totally agree with that, and I think we talked about it earlier. I think you either are going to like the way this album is laid out or not, because I don't think this fits what we're normally looking for. I think this is something that you like hang out and enjoy, and you just enjoy the vibe of, and you let it soak over you, that's kind of the thing of the genres, at least that are related to this. And then you get to the end and you hear some people, I won't say actually play music, but go for it a little bit. You know, you hear them go for it, those last 3 tracks, and there's a nice build into it. And whether or not it's because all the songs kind of sound the same, it does flow really well from track to track.
Yes, and that is fine and well. My two scores are a little bit. The reasoning's a little bit different.
Okay.
So the 6 is, while we're looking at it critically, for sure. I feel like looking at it critically really affects this pacing score. Like, expecting it to be this perfect parabola that we're used to, you know, the up and then the down right at the end.
That's another word Logan doesn't
So he's
understand.
using
I say you can use that word. That was a memorable line, but if you say it 7 more times,
Parabola, 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 parabola. There it is.
you're my favorite 6 out of 10, Carson.
Love you, Logan.
This clip's not going to make any sense in the Monday Wednesday read.
He also just completely derailed his train of thought. I mean, we got like West Palestine going on over here. Like,
Holy shit, Carl.
we're gonna start calling you Norfolk Southern if you derail harder than that.
Dude, you can't say that.
I can say whatever I want. I'm on the internet.
This, my 8 is for the pure notion of how this can affect your fucking playlist. If you put this in between shit, if you throw this in a playlist where it belongs, and you hear these songs, not one after another, but one, and then 3 songs later you hear another one, maybe 5 or 6 songs after that, it's perfect. Each one of these songs hit. You wouldn't get fatigued. You wouldn't get any of the negative shit that I've been talking about. You just get a nice experience each time this would come on.
I just want to point out that is. I understand that everything we do is subjective, but that is the most insane backwards way to justify pacing I've ever heard in my life.
Hey, I did it from critically, and then I did it from like how I'm gonna use this album, and I'm gonna shoehorn it into a bunch of different fucking playlists.
Sorry,
Because I'm a madman.
That reminds me of the scene in Billy Madison where he says all of that stuff, and then at the end the guy stands up and he goes, "Not only is everything you said entirely wrong, but we are now stupider for having to have listened to it."
Damn.
That was the level of just absolute slap down that Connor just gave you. That was so good.
This is how the album is paced. It's paced great if it's not in album form.
Yeah, that's why I gave it 2 scores.
This shit's goated if I had my hands on it.
No, I honestly don't think you're supposed to actively listen to like 2/3 of this album. I think that's the point. Is we talk about it a lot. We tend to score music badly that's like that. Something like there's a lot of rock genres that are that way. A lot of slower rock, you know, a lot of like stoner doom genres are that way. You listen to them loud and you just sit in a room and you just vibe.
Great.
And
It's like 90% of what I listen to.
Right, and I feel like that's a lot of this album, and a lot of what we didn't like is when you listen critically to something like that, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, we've been saying it for a while. Sometimes albums suffer because of the way we do this.
Yeah, definitely. And this was one of them, I think.
I
I
mean,
really do.
we say that, but we can all definitely flick that filter in our
Well, so we
brain. That's
can,
like
but-
turn the critical off a little bit, and we for sure adjust it as needed.
So we can, but half the time if we did that, we would come in here with nothing to say about it.
That's so
That's the
very
problem.
true.
Yeah, and dude, I actually don't know that I've ever given a song a 10 on an album. Like, I might have, but it's really rare. We tend
You
to save...
definitely. Everybody had multiple 10s on Somewhere City.
Okay, so it's more rare for us to... I mean, we really save them.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
We definitely grade on talking about parabolas. We grade on a parabolic scale with 5 being the center, and like something that's a 1 or a 0 is like so terrible I could never hear it again and be happier.
Mhm.
But something that's a 10 is like, oh, I will listen to this a lot.
This is life changing.
Yeah, this is an experience that I will probably always remember, and that's a big deal for anyone musically. So I wouldn't be. I don't know. We talk about this a lot. We talk about how we score stuff and how screwed up our system is, and it's super funny. This is definitely the best way we could do it. It just helps to have some context sometimes.
I mean, to that point, talking about 10s, I was talking to Connor yesterday about A Grave Mistake, the Ice Nine Kills song. I gave it a 10 in the review. I sat down on this couch yesterday to shoot a video, and I look at Connor, I go, listen to that song like 2 more times today. It gets more perfect every time I hear it. And I will stand to that sentiment. It's like, and you're exactly right, 10s do something. Like, if we say it's a 10, that's one that goes in the playlist. It's probably an everyday player.
Actually, on that point, I think if there was ever a case to be made for a music overall to get a 10, it's Somewhere City. Because after we listened to that, not only did some of the songs make it onto the playlist, the entire album made it onto a playlist. And I think if anything's going to justify that, it would be me doing that.
So that's actually part of why Anthony doesn't want to come back on. Is he's like, I overdid it. I did too well the first time, and I can never do that again.
No, he has to get his one where he brings it and we hate it.
Yeah, we just
he
shit
still
on
needs
it.
that.
Oh.
So
Yeah, and we tend to just hate everything. We're kind of crotchety old guys.
Pretty much.
I mean, I really am. You guys just are old and at heart, I guess.
But yeah, to talk a little bit more about the pacing, because I haven't really done that.
Oh yeah, shit. Sorry, dude.
No. That we all went on tangents there. I didn't know if placement is a thing we can bitch about in pacing or album overall, but they were the same score anyway, so I'm going to talk about it in both anyway. I think that this song, or this album on shuffle, or this album on standard, is going to be almost the same minus the ending that has to stay. I think the last 2 are pretty locked in, but the other 10, shuffle them. And there's something to be said about that, because it's, 1, to a degree of, yes, a lot of these sound very similar, but 2, they're also on a very high standard of that scale. This isn't like, we're getting Joe Schmo in his garage that did, 360 working hours over the course of 2 years to get this album out. This is a guy who had money and time and like production put into it. So it's just, to be able to have that, to be able to hit the shuffle button so cleanly, I think, and still get the same effect is pretty cool. And then also, the fatigue really, was just, I wanted an interlude, and that never happens. I never am like, give me the extra minute, 30 seconds of random nonsense. So that's just kind of how it goes with this one.
I listen to the most of the middle of the album together. I usually take listening breaks just because if you start listening critically, it's easy to get ear fatigue. But I definitely got to the point where I kind of was in a trance. I kind of got to that stage, and it all makes more sense. And I think that's how you're supposed to listen to a lot of this genre, I guess. Or things that are adjacent to this, at
I
least.
think you're supposed to get really, really stoned and stare at the ceiling, like on your back, and listen to this.
I don't think you necessarily have to be intoxicated, but like it probably helps.
I was just saying, I bet
you've
that
got a
makes it
busy mind.
feel great.
Yeah, I bet if you got a busy mind, that probably helps, because you really kind of have to like let it wash over you. And I think part of that's just like the reverb and everything. I think that's part of the whole whole thing.
It is a soundscape,
Yeah.
not a song.
There you go. That's a good way to put it.
It's like, it is truly, I mean, Tron is a good comparison. It's truly, do you want to step into the game and play,
Yeah.
or do you want to, like, watch?
It's a soundscape and kind of an overall mood almost, rather than songs at certain points. And that's a really hard thing to score and a really hard thing to pace as well. Just because there was so much of that on this album.
Oh, yeah.
You know what's not difficult to score? Album art.
Ooh, yeah.
Let's move on. I gave the album art a 6.5 out of 10.
Gave it a 6 out of 10.
I give this one a 5.
I give this one a 6.5.
Okay, I did not hate this album art. It just made me slightly uncomfortable because that makes my back hurt just looking at that. I don't understand who sat there in a photo studio and said, "Hello, please stand perfectly at a 45-degree angle with your back, so I can get this shadow the right way." It's probably a cool album art. Like, I just would have expected to see, like, I don't know, either 80s colors or the whole 80s vibe, you know, like, I mean, yeah, I guess you don't have to rent a Lamborghini and be in the front seat, or, you know, you don't have to have a mullet and reflective shoes, or whatever weird 80s cliche you're into. I just don't think this did a good job serving what it sounds like.
Yeah, no. And it's, at its core, it's very, very simple. Its half point for me actually comes from the font that they chose. I think the font that they chose is pretty neat. But it's majorly just a dude standing in a spotlight, standing in a weird pose.
I also think this might be another reference that we don't get.
Probably.
Going back to
It's-
Simpatico earlier, I think it might be like a movie poster or another album cover, or there's like something there that like, it's another weird thing about this album. Like, it felt nostalgic, but I don't understand why with the album art. So like, I couldn't put that together.
I also do like the little sparkle in the E. That feels 80s.
So, looking at this album art, smack dab, this is Barry Manilow. Like, this is what is screaming at my face is the album you put on for sex music. That's what this album art looks like. You know what I mean? It's just, this is,
Hold-
to
hold
me,
on, pause. You put on Barry Manilow?
not like Copacabana prior.
I put on Skrillex.
Yeah, I was like, bro, you're talking about messed up pacing. Anyway, let's go
My
on.
pacing's great.
All right, I should admit, I do not put on Barry
You know,
Manilow.
pacing doesn't really matter when it's only 30 seconds anyway, so he's fine.
Seabag. But yeah, this is, to me, I think an overshoot almost. And also, how much of that is that Europe gets some music a little late? This could be based on an album from someone early 80s that was basing it off of something from the US in the late 70s. You know, because to me, this is a 70s style album art for an 80s style album, but it screams like R&B or like soul music or something like soft and like you're about to be like guided through a meditation.
I figured out the retro thing I'm feeling. It kind of looks like one of the albums I tend to pass over in a bargain bin. Like, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It feels retro. It just does not feel like any of the good albums. Like
Damn.
Well, no, I mean, it's
None
just,
of the recognizable ones.
right. It's like
The
I don't-
one that everyone did the album a cover of.
I just don't know how else to explain it other than like it looks
Sadly.
and feels like an album cover. Like it walks like a duck, it talks like a duck, it is a duck, but like it's not a duck, you know? I don't know how else
No.
to explain that.
It's a goose and a duck costume.
We've lost the plot.
Yeah. I get it. I mean, I kind of get what you're saying. Is like every part of this screams like it's the right vintage album art, but something about it is just like this uncanny valley of like just something's not right.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with that. Looking at it now, it looks vintage. It looks like it captured the era they were going for. It just, I don't think it captured the genre. That's, yeah.
Yeah, I guess again, sorry, I guess it's just Carl tangent night is the theme for tonight. Is we've been on a tangent all night. Very sorry.
Do we want to end the tangent or do we want to go for another 25 minutes?
We want to end the
just-
tangent.
Let's just do the let's
go to album
Let's go album overall. I gave music overall a 7 out of 10.
Give it a 7.5.
I gave it a 7.
I gave it a 7.
I will say that's for me. I think if, well, no,
I would hope. That's
no,
the
no.
goal.
No, I mean, like, I feel like when it comes to overall, I just throw all the objectivity out the door. I really do. I really just say, yeah.
I think that's the point of overall is it's like the song rankings, that was kind of, we stripped it back and looked objectively as much as we can, and overall is like, this is what it was
Is to
for
me.
Yeah.
I totally see where people would lose their minds over this, though. Like, I completely understand that.
Yeah, I can definitely see it too. People will, if you're listening to this the right way, you're gonna fucking love it. You're gonna have a great time. Unfortunately for me, I wasn't listening to it the right way. I was listening to it while on the highway with fucking truck speakers where I couldn't hear every small little detail, and it just started feeling, wishy-washy. Everything starts blending together. Everything kind of starts to sound the same, especially in the middle, and it gets a little bit rough to get through that patch. But the ending, and then I feel like if I broke it off into pieces, it would be so much more digestible and a much better experience for me.
Sorry, I'm writing notes about what I want to say in closing. Someone else go.
Yeah, now, just overall, I liked this album. I will probably come back to this album. If not as an album, it's definitely going in playlists. Like we've said, like on every other song.
Yeah. I mean, I did listen to this the wrong way. I'll flat out admit it. If you've got AirPod 4s, 1, take them back to the store if you can. 2, don't buy them. If you're thinking about it, get AirPod Pro 2s. I got burnt.
If you're watching the live right now, Skull Candy's running an awesome sale right now. Get you some good headphones.
Go get those. But yeah, any more these days, if I like your album, it's a congratulations. And I did find myself saying I like this more than I find it just okay. It started off on the wrong foot for me. And once I finally could give up, the AirPods were just wrong. I enjoyed what was there, not through a critical lens. I was able to kind of sit down and think of it through the like, okay, I am your average day-to-day listener. Let me think of it this way, because if you get critical with bad listening headphones, gosh, everything was a 2. But it's just being able to have stripped that back and kind of think a little less asshole-ish for the day did give me a different appreciation for this. And just sitting there thinking, okay, this guy's got the time and money into it, and even then he's like showing up. Cool, even better. Like, a good guy put out a good album that makes me move and groove and feel things. Good job.
All right, this is gonna be really weird. No, I'm actually gonna go back and give the album an 8. Because I think I was actually flawed in the entirety of my thinking. Most of the 80s music I listen to is band based. I think when I think of the 80s, I think of a lot of my favorite bands, people that work together to create this music. And I think a lot of the stuff I was complaining about not hearing the musicians was because I was thinking of it as a band album, not a solo album, which is what it is. I feel like I rated things a little unfair because a lot of my favorite 80s music is that, and then all the other stuff that I like is like, how are you going to compare this to So? You're not going to. You can't compare anything to that album. Peter Gabriel literally he hired the best musicians possible to play every single part on all of his albums, not just that album. It's not fair. It's just not fair. I think I was just mean. I think I was a little too mean overall.
Just the references I kept in my brain, I don't know if this will help or detract from anyone, was Madonna, Eurythmics, and then
Madonna's there. Never mind. Bump my score up to a fucking 10.
Which just because, like, you have to have that solo stuff, and then you have to have that synth stuff just in there. And it's like those two were kind of the big influencers in my brain, and you can tell a lot of the influences. And then obviously, like with Radio Queen popped through, so it's just you can hear a lot of like just genre knowledge in there, and homage to it, and just I mean, having the base to know a bunch of those things is just really cool to see all those done in a well pulled off way with less than my favorite production, but also I'm not a music producer.
Well, let's talk to one who is. Conrad,
What do you want?
I haven't heard you speak.
I thought the production was solid. It was an interesting blend of the vintage and the modern, which is what I said in track 1.
I still think it was mostly overproduced.
Yeah, but I also think that the overproducing helped to make what was it? Holy Drug digestible to the average listener.
Yes, and so there are a lot of big producers on this album. I know one of the guys worked with BTS. I mean, there's some like big producers on this album, and I think some of it was over polished for the retro vibe it was going for, and was definitely over soaked in reverb. That being said, some of the other tracks really shine through the production. So I can tell different people did different tracks. But I don't know. Overall, I think there was just a lot in a lot of the tracks, and I think that's why it only went to an 8 from a 7. With me rethinking my scores, I still didn't love. Just there's so much. At times,
you're sitting here trying
effectively.
to justify an 8 like that's not a
Yes.
damn good fucking score.
Well,
Isn't that like
No,
what
he-
Sabrina Carpenter
No,
got?
he just has to yap for the next 30 minutes.
No, I'm not gonna yap for the next 30 minutes. I mean, I
We
could.
have for 30 minutes. This is gonna be our longest episode
I mean,
in
2 days.
history.
I started talking about Peter
We're getting
Gabriel's "So," and if you guys want me to talk about that, I probably
No.
could for 30 minutes. But that's not super related.
I do think it is time to wrap the show.
All right.
Producers are waving us off.
I do. Even if he doesn't rewatch this, I do want to thank Ollie for popping in.
Oh,
That
Oh,
was
yeah,
that
that
was
was really
really
cool.
cool.
I'd love to sit down and chat if you got the time.
Definitely, and it doesn't have to be about the album. We'd love for him to recommend something for us to check out.
Oh, for sure.
Even do any of that stuff. But we didn't really read the comments earlier out loud. Obviously, they're in the chat, but the fact that he wrote it and the basis of the album is all live playing kind of helped me make a few other choices and stuff of how I was going to talk about it later on. So that was really cool. I really appreciate any insights we can get to any of that stuff, especially on the day it came out. How cool to do
Oh,
that.
for
Exactly.
sure. I mean, album release
insane.
day. I mean, we've got people that we're like buddies with that'll have like a song drop. And we're like, oh, hey, congrats. And I won't get a DM back for like the weekend. And they're like, thanks, it's been hectic. And I mean, he popped into a live smack dab in like the middle of busy hours for everybody on a Friday night to come give us some insight.
Oh, I didn't look to see if he was playing tonight. I could look up. That might be really funny if he's just been on stage this entire.
He was only here for that amount
Yeah,
of time
'cause he was
because
at
he
a
went on
show.
stage.
It's like, yo, these assholes just gave this song a 2 out of 10.
No, the next one's the 20th, so he's got a couple weeks.
I'll enjoy those couple weeks off.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get to talk to you.
Unfortunately, not coming close
Fishing.
enough for us to get to a show, but I will give him super props to whoever designed the tour because he's hitting in the U.S. mostly the Northeast and then the West Coast, which I think is a really good idea because I don't really think people that love country will love this album unless they're also huge 80s fans. I feel like that might be a little bit of a press to do Nashville, but I still loved it. I don't know. I just thought that was really cool when I looked at the tour dates.
You got anything else?
The unfortunate news that next week is Valentine's Day.
There is no live next week, but we will be back in 2 weeks. I think it's the 21st, if I'm not wrong.
That's 7 days after the 14th.
Yep. 21st. We're reviewing Why Brad Ran Away by Hades, I believe is how you say that. He reached out on Instagram, asked us to take a look at his album, so we're going to do it.
So are we gonna find out why Brad ran away?
I believe we will.
It's one of those things. So like, one of my favorite movies is John dies at the end, and John doesn't die at the end, or maybe he does. Actually, I don't remember now. This is funny. Does John die at the end? Does anyone know?
No, I
Oh well, leave it in the comments. Whatever.
I say.
Thanks,
Also,
guys.
If you want us to check out your stuff, send us a DM or leave us a comment. We check out most of it.
Unless it's AI, and then I won't make a video about it. but that was once. So.
It was still probably show it to us though.
Probably.
I think I sent it to Logan.
He did send it to me. He said, "We can't do this, can we?" I said, "No."
What we've learned this week is that we sure cut out a lot of Carl rants in the published videos. That's what we've learned this week.
No wonder everything's a 4-hour shit.
It's all me. I can't stop talking.
All right.
All right.
See ya.
See ya.
Bye.